Hooker, Dan the prostitute hooker, Dan the salty, bitter prostitute, is going off on Islam Makhachev. Currently, he went on a Twitter rampage, making some wild claims, accusations of Makhachev cheating, getting an IV in Australia to, make the weight and be healthy and strong, with absolutely zero proof, zero evidence behind that whatsoever. I think he's just bitter that Islam Makhachev nearly broke his arm and verbally tapped him. I don't know why. I mean, he's obviously biased because his boy Volkanovski didn't win. If Volkanovski had got the decision, he would not be running his mouth. I mean, Dan is only relevant because his name is attached to Volkanovski, the GOAT, basically, of featherweight. And, for right now, pound for pound number one until tomorrow. That's the only reason why Hooker is relevant. If he wasn't training at CKB with Israel Adesanya or Volkanovski, would anyone really know who he is or care about him? I highly doubt that. But here's what he had to say. Dumb CUNT thinks he can fly to Australia, hire a nurse to give him an IV, and we don't find out. Cheating dog. Where's the proof? And then someone replied, Dan, who are you talking about? It's early East Coast, USA, so it's hard to find out. And then he just replied, Islam is a cheat. And he had more things to say, like, oh, USADA is doing fuck all. Prove me wrong. Bet you can't. Yeah, I don't know what this man's going on about. I mean, he cannot prove. I mean, he has no proof. I don't want to say he cannot prove. I mean, he can't prove it. But he has no legit proof that Makhachev is cheating. He's just saying that because he's bitter. And he hates Islam because Islam verbally tapped him, nearly broke his arm, and beat his friend Volkanovski. That's the only reason why. Dan, until you actually have evidence, I don't want to hear another word out of you. Find evidence and then start talking shit. But until then, just lay low, Dan Hooker. I mean, you just pulled out of your fight with Jalen Turner. You dodged a bullet there. You were about to lose. And your track record as of late is not looking too good. You're literally 2-4 in your last 6 fights. Not looking good. Well, Islam Makhachev has a win over you, and he's soon to be pound for pound number one tomorrow, and he is the world champion. Something, Dan Hooker, that you will never accomplish. So again, until you actually got proof, until you have evidence to prove that Makhachev was cheating, then again, you shouldn't be running your mouth. If you actually have proof, you have every room to talk shit and get mad. But right now you don't. You're just coming off as just bitter and like a jealous ex-girlfriend. It's embarrassing, Dan. You're really embarrassing yourself by running your mouth at the lightweight champion like that. It's honestly embarrassing. And I mean, Islam didn't even perform like a dude who had an IV. I mean, he didn't have time to recover from the weigh-ins. So Islam honestly may have even had an off night against Volkanovski. He looked drained in that fight. He did not perform like a guy who took an IV. If he took an IV and looked like the Makhachev we've seen before this fight, I could see it. But yeah, I don't think Islam cheated. He definitely didn't cheat. He showed up with a bad weight cut. He could have pulled out. He didn't pull out. He showed up anyway. Not his best self against Volk at his best. And he still managed to barely squeak it out. So Makhachev deserves credit. Dan just being salty, but of course, to no surprise.